we're now celebrating 15 years. So we established formally in 2010, and it was very informal initially. We had a really good group of people who came together who believed in the whole idea of community asset transfer. And we literally ran on fumes with no staff, no office for the first couple of years, and finally convinced what is now the Department of Communities to support us with a 2-year grant. And that grant really was the start. That enabled us to find an office, recruit Charlie Fisher, and the rest, as they say, is history. What was happening in Northern Ireland was nothing in terms of community asset transfer. It was an unknown. And we saw some really inspiring stories with the Development Trust movement in England, and equally in Scotland, where they grew very quickly on the back of legislation and land reform. And we thought this is so relative to Northern Ireland, particularly as we have a huge number of public assets lying idle and vacant, and there wasn't really a true audit. And we have a very strong community spirit, some really capable communities, and it was really trying to match the two and give them that opportunity. DTNI has evolved, I think, amazingly well over the last 15 years, because we've grown from no members to 70 or 80 members, and that's been driven entirely by Charlie Fisher and his team. It's a really hard sell sometimes to convince people that by joining together you can do better, but we are now well established. We are now the recognised voice of community asset transfer, and we've developed into all sorts of other community wealth building and other projects, and we're looking south of the border. So I think we've come a really long way, and I'm really proud of it. My advice for the future and for community leaders is to find them. The best projects are the ones which have good leadership, and if you give a community the opportunity, they will be inspired, they will make things happen. And we've got to trust communities. We're very bad at that in Northern Ireland. We've got to believe that actually a community-led, community-owned solution is the best way forward.
My name is Larry McCusker. I'm director here at the Fermanagh Trust. The Fermanagh Trust was set up 30 years ago to support community and voluntary endeavour in Fermanagh and its natural hinterlands. That work has evolved significantly over those 30 years, and here we are in Fermanagh House, which is one of our social enterprises, which as well as being a community hub space for the people of Fermanagh, it's also a place which generates an income, so it has that social and the enterprise side as well. I think that was our first focus, was to build a network, build a network of learning, a network of support, where you could convene and bring people together, and also help others build and develop in other places as well. Being outward looking, and engagement regionally is part of that, being outward looking and learning from others, but also helping others as well. So that's what we're focused in on. Well, it's been fascinating how DTNI has evolved since myself and others got around those initial tables and had those initial conversations, and now seeing some of the real positive work. It's great to see the work that the organisation's been able to develop around mentoring, around programmes of support, around training, etc. And I think that's been really helpful for so many others across this field. And we're still a relatively small movement in Northern Ireland, but we're growing, and DTNI has been very important in that growth. The Fermanagh House facility that we're in is a space which typifies a great exemplar of a development trust in action. It's a place which is of the community, for the community, and generates an income. We've been delighted to host huge numbers of visitors from across the development trusts and fledgling development trusts right across these islands, and I think this space typifies and underpins what a development trust should be about. Development trusts and the development trust movement can do some things really, really well, and communities are really good at organising. And we've seen that in so many ways. We've seen that with the credit union movement, we've seen that with preschool education, we've seen it with community halls. One area we haven't seen it, interestingly, in this part of the world is in energy. Communities don't have an active role in energy. So we've done some significant work around the potential for communities to get involved in this space, building on good examples from other countries. So again, that's been about being outward looking. But it's a real challenge here because of the way our society is organised, and we still believe that if we're going to achieve our climate change targets and really get actively involved in that space, then communities have to be involved. And for communities that have to be involved, they can't be passive, they have to be proactive. But that's a space we'll continue to focus in, and we're working with others across Northern Ireland through the Northern Ireland Community Energy Initiative to try and make that possible.
So Women's Aid Armagh Down began over 40 years ago, and it began because of extreme need in this area for safe refuge for women and children. And we've grown from one worker to a staff team of 40, and we cover the Newry Down Council area, and we cover the Armagh, Banbridge and Quickavon area. And in both of them areas we provide safe refuge accommodation, and we also provide a community-based support services. Way back whenever I started, the biggest challenges was getting money to keep the doors opened. And it was difficult then, and I would go as far as to say that it's much more difficult 40 years later. On any given day here, we would have 400 plus women trying to get into the service, and we work at full capacity all the time, to the point where we now prioritise, we have been for quite a number of years, we prioritise in risk. It's probably the demand is 3 times more on any given day. Each year we constantly engage with our service users. We talk to women, we talk to children, we talk to young people, and we keep asking them, are we getting it right? How are we getting it right? Where are we not getting it? What do you need that we're not giving you? And year on year and year and year, women and children and young people have been saying they want more services, they want more space, and based on what they've been telling us for the last 20 plus years, we knew we needed to expand the space, the safe space that we can provide them services in. And when I was really struggling because we had a derelict building next door to us, and I was really struggling to get any leeway or any forward thinking, I met a man called Charlie Fisher, and in my eyes Charlie Fisher is everything about community wealth building, and we had a good strong chat. And I have to say, over the last since I met Charlie in 2016 or so, Charlie has been an absolute pillar of strength with his guidance, with his understanding. I mean, he didn't know very much about domestic abuse, he does now. But Charlie didn't only just become somebody who guided me, he became a genuine friend and somebody who cared in the work that we do and wants to see it thrive. So along with Charlie and his team have been absolutely fundamentally a core support in us being able to purchase next door. And Charlie fought that good fight along with me when we went to different statute bodies. He pulled in all the people that he could to help me. He helped me, guided me correctly on the community ownership application. I mean, that was a minefield, and without DTNI I don't think we would have got that. That's a definite. Also with you can do this, Eileen, you've been doing it for years, and why can't you of course you can do it. And yes, the need's definitely there, and giving us the confidence to believe what we were seeing and hearing from our women and children, young people, giving us the confidence to take that step. We're a service driven provider. We're not into building portfolios of buildings. That our work is frontline, very much frontline, but we definitely needed Charlie and DTNI behind us to say you're much more than that, and you can be much more than that, and to show us the value of owning our own property and securing that asset, so that it would be here not only for today but for tomorrow and into the future. And I think DTNI were monumental in that, absolutely. Everybody should have DTNI and Charlie Fisher on their contact list.
I'm Nick O'Shiel, Chief Executive of Oma Enterprise Company, and delighted to welcome you here to Oma today. Oma Enterprise Company is a local enterprise agency. It's a local enterprise agency for the area, and we have two bits to the business. We provide property, as you can see in the background here, for businesses starting up, and it's easy in, easy out, access lease, so it makes it easy for somebody to start a business. And then we also provide all the support like business plans, marketing plans, mentoring, IT advice, and everything that a business might need to get started off. Oma Enterprise Company started about 40 years ago, and in our other premises we have about 90 businesses on site employing about 450 people, and that's developed over that period of time. And then about 7 or 8 years ago, this site, which was derelict, it was formerly a health centre, and everybody in the area knows it for those 40 years as well. From our point of view, we were looking for another site to develop to provide more space for local entrepreneurs because there's a constant demand for it. The other aspect of it is that we worked with on the place shaping plan in Oma that was done about 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, and that was looking for ideas to regenerate town centres. This is in the town centre within Oma, and one of the challenges Oma has, like every town, are the derelict buildings that are there, an increasing number of derelict buildings. So we saw that as an opportunity to do something enterprising in the town. One of the ways to make a town vibrant is to bring people into it, and this was a way to launch the DigiHub. Say it will take 50 businesses employing 250 staff. So there's about 20 businesses and 50 people working from here today, and as time goes on that will increase to 50 businesses and 250. And we'd like to replicate that too in other buildings in the town. So you can see if you did another building or a couple of buildings like this, you'd have about 1,000 people in the town centre, and that would absolutely bring vibrancy to the town, because it makes other derelict buildings more attractive when people can see what's been done here. Well, we're a partner and a member of DTNI and have been for quite a number of years, and we found that very beneficial from a general point of view of just keeping up to date with what's happening both in town centre regeneration and in business development. And a particular help for this project, before we even got this off the ground, we were talking to DTNI about what was available and how to go about this, and DTNI have been a supporter from the start and all the way through, and that's taken about 4 or 5 years. And they were particularly helpful on the community asset transfer policy, which we came to know at the time, and they helped us to navigate our way through that. And that was really the lever for making this happen, that we were able to express an interest in the asset from the local health board, and through the community asset transfer policy and working with DTNI, we were able to purchase that, and then the rest led to the idea and the vision of it and getting the funding. And we continued to work with DTNI, and I think it's a great facility across Northern Ireland, because what we've done here can be done in every other part of Northern Ireland as well.
One of the things that DTNI is really, really good at is articulating the needs across the sector, and to me anyway, communicating to government the possibilities, the potential, the solutions, what's working elsewhere, the art of the possible, and joining those two things up. DTNI is really, and the team there is really, really good at that. And it does do delivery really well. DTNI can get from thinking and talking, right? The two stages that we get stuck in Northern Ireland, especially in government, to action with partners, practically, on the ground, really quickly. So DTNI does delivery very well. Proved that recently in terms of the Community Ownership Fund. And if you think about the disproportionate amount of investment that came into Northern Ireland around that fund relative to our size, was, I think, down to the support that DTNI gave to those projects, putting their plans together and putting their bids together. Another thing that DTNI does really well, because I personally have benefited from this, is influencing policy through learning and growth. I learned so much about the policy area that I was in and the potential and ambition that could be beyond where our current thinking was at. It's something that stood out and stood apart for me about the group of people that were working in that area of community ownership, community rights, and community wealth building using that CLES model. So it's a part of my work that I absolutely loved. I really enjoyed it. And I became an advocate, if you like, within government and across departments for community wealth building as a result of that learning that I gained during that time. And before I even turned to look to Scotland to try and make contact with the officials who were working in it there, DTNI had made the link for me. That's how forward thinking they are. There's real depth, genuinely real depth to the policy insight work, the research work that DTNI does, and what works elsewhere and could it be adapted or adopted for Northern Ireland. They do that extremely well. I think we are on the cusp of a breakthrough in Northern Ireland around community wealth building, some of that capacity building work that the team in DTNI has done. I can see it. I can see it just looking around on social media and looking at what local government is doing. And I can see in Northern Ireland the momentum building now at central government in terms of the working economy. We know that communities, Department for Communities is also, along with Department of Finance and Personnel, bought in. And I think potentially we're on the cusp of a breakthrough around looking at alternative economic models. And DTNI will be important to that, critical to that, and at the heart of it, I think.
So Solus is a special needs charity. We've been running for 17 years. We work directly with children and young people with a range of disabilities, particularly autism, but a whole range of disabilities and additional needs. And we also then work with their families and sibling carers and the wider sort of community as well. So we have a fairly wide remit. And I suppose whenever I got to a certain point in my life, I realised I wanted to do something a bit more around supporting young people with a range of disabilities. And the lack of community services was really sort of quite prominent, and it was fairly evident that there wasn't enough of facilities for after schools or early years or youth provision for young people that had additional needs or autism or a whole range of disabilities. So we're quite a big, expansive organisation now, working mainly in South Belfast and East Belfast, but we have families supported right across the Greater Belfast area. So for Solus, the biggest challenges really have been around funding and trying to secure facilities that were fit for purpose, because children with additional needs and a range of disabilities need more specialist equipment, needs more specialist resource and need more space, and it's often very difficult to kind of secure that within the community. We work great with the community and we have a lot of great partners that we can hire facilities and we rent facilities from, but at the end of the day, we really want something that is fit for purpose and that can fit the needs. That really is one of the biggest challenges that we've faced since our inception, that is trying to secure facilities that are fit for purpose. I suppose our relationships with community has been absolutely paramount to our development, and we will continue to have those strong relationships. DTNI have been paramount to Solus sort of development over the last 3 or 4 years, particularly in relation to this new project, which is the new building. Margaret, for example, has been involved in helping us with the COF funding, which is the community ownership funding, and that really was a very big part of our kickstart to get this project off the ground. Without, I suppose, that big investment, it would have been very hard to sort of pull in all the other funds. It's a £2.5 million build, so without getting that £750,000-800,000 kickstart, it would have been much more difficult and challenging to be able to secure it and convince other funders that actually we were worthwhile and we were capable of delivering. That other consultancy supports access to specialist provision, and that can be accessed through DTNI. That again has also been very helpful. Anytime we lift the phone to Margaret, she's always very helpful, always very accommodating, wants to support this project, and you always feel you're pushing at an open door. She'll do everything she can, to try and get you the support you need at that particular time.
My name's Brian Docherty. I'm CEO of Northwest Cultural Partnership, who are based out of this building here, the Newgate Arts and Cultural Centre. We are quite a unique organisation, we believe, in the sense that we've turned a negative into a positive. We're the only organisation in Northern Ireland that look at Ulster Scots, Ulster British pro-union culture as a way of engaging with young, hard-to-reach working class people from both sides of the community. But we use the centre as a pathway opportunity for young dancers, young musicians from both sides or all traditions to collaborate and have the opportunity to improve their skill base, but then also to perform to a public audience as well. Brian O'Neill and the staff involved, DTNI, have been very valuable in allowing us to explore that social economy side. I mean, we're all community workers who are involved in arts and culture and mainstream peace building and community development, but DTNI were crucial in help guiding us through this process of how do we generate income, how does the arts make money. We're actually finding the space to be very, very popular. We sell out pretty much each event, and we're seeing people coming from right across the city from different diverse backgrounds to view the performances, which was a challenge we felt at the start. And I think that's where DTNI are really beneficial as well, not just, I suppose, in terms of the technical support and the advisory support, but how they're encouraging a collaborative approach within the Northwest. It gives us, Newgate, an opportunity to meet with other community workers, with other like-minded social economies. The more the DTNI can bring those collaborations together, then it helps not only, as I say, in terms of individual group development, but provides that kind of sharing of information, sharing of skills, sharing of progress and collaboration going forward.
CAN is a charity working with children and adults with learning disabilities. We're based up on the north coast of Northern Ireland, and we work with over 575 individuals, their families and carers. We support individuals in a variety of ways, from day opportunities to fun and friendship programs, and we also deliver social enterprises through our retail outlets, our Can Bazaar shops in Ballymena, Ballymoney and Coleraine, and we process all of the materials here at the farm. Lisslagan Farm came about as a result of COVID. The organisation had been looking for a permanent home, having spent many years in various different rented accommodations, and I suppose all of us learnt about the importance and the power of nature during COVID, and we started to look outside of the towns to an area that could actually bring us added benefits of nature as therapy. We have built a social enterprise hub on site, which now processes over 150 tonnes of textiles a year, and we provide so many different projects around play therapy, nature therapy, animal therapy, right through then into sports activities. And we do a lot of training with our adults with learning disabilities in horticulture on the farm as well. So now that we've established the site, our plans are kind of rapidly evolving, in that we're currently building or refurbishing the cottage to turn it into 2 respite units in a community space, which will be used by the public. And once we start generating an income from that space, we'll then be moving on to develop the expansion of the respite village, which ultimately will provide spaces, accommodation for over 60 people per night on site, who can also benefit from the beauty of the North Antrim coast and this really therapeutic nature-based space. The acquisition of Lisslagan Farm really has deepened the relationship with DTNI. We're now part of the Trailblazers programme and connecting with other organisations from across the UK who may be able to help us, but similarly who we can help in their community ownership journey. We're also looking at community asset transfer in another area of Causeway Coast and Glens up in Mid and East Antrim, which, if it comes off, will expand the services that we provide in a therapeutic nature-based space even further. So yeah, the support with DTNI has been superb.
I'm Alison Gordon, Development Director at Open House Festival, based here in Bangor, County Down. We're a music and arts organisation, we're a registered charity, we run festivals and events, and 3 years ago we opened our own permanent venue here in the old courthouse on Bangor seafront. The courthouse was decommissioned in 2013 and was lying empty, and we got involved in a campaign to try and take over the courthouse and turn it into a venue for the local community. It took us 7 years to acquire the building through Northern Ireland's first community asset transfer and raised nearly £2 million to do a full restoration and redevelopment. And we opened the doors in October 2022. Open House Festival was founded in 1999 in the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast, just after the signing of the Good Friday Agreement, and we wanted to create a festival that would be open, welcoming, and part of a new, inclusive Northern Ireland. Bangor was formerly a very thriving seaside town, and like many seaside towns throughout Ireland and Britain, has fallen on hard times in recent years. We were part of the reimagining of the Cathedral Quarter in Belfast, and we wanted to help repeat that success story here in Bangor. This is a Victorian heritage building. It was built in 1866 as a bank, and most of the building was the bank manager's family home. In the 1950s, it became a courthouse, a local magistrates' court. There are layers of history within it. So it's a beautiful building, but it was challenging as well to turn it into a working music and arts venue. But we've now had the doors open nearly 3 years. We run about 500 events a year, and about 50,000 people come through the doors each year to see music, theatre, film, comedy, and a whole host of other live events. We came to this building as an arts business that needed a permanent home, and it was actually DTNI that introduced us to a local voluntary group who were trying to acquire the building. Getting ownership of the building was a key challenge. We didn't have the money to buy it, and it wasn't for sale. We had to persuade the Department of Justice to give us the building through community asset transfer. There's been legislation for that for over a decade, but no project had managed at that point to get over the line. There was no clear pathway to do community asset transfer here, so it was a long, arduous process that took us 7 years. Without the support and encouragement of DTNI, this project wouldn't have happened. So the courthouse has given the local arts community a dedicated venue for performance. So it's given local audiences a venue right on their doorstep. They don't have to go to Belfast anymore. They can see professional quality arts here in their home city. The courthouse is having wider reaching impact as well as just the activities that we deliver. It's benefiting local businesses, and we're working with other arts organisations to create things like Late Night Art Bangor, which we co-founded earlier this year. We're now leading on a new business improvement district for Bangor, so it's creating ripples, and we think that the courthouse is having a really major impact on the regeneration of Bangor.
I'm Nicola Cray. I'm the Director of Community Empowerment Division in Department for Communities. So Community Empowerment Division works with a range of community organisations in the most deprived and disadvantaged areas of Northern Ireland, and supporting them to deliver community development type interventions to their communities, designed to cover a whole range of things to help communities and people move out of deprivation. Place is probably become more important in terms of how you can effectively impact deprivation in particular, but obviously other issues as well within a community. So I think that whole issue around place and its importance is really key to making a difference. It's more about linking areas into areas of opportunity, and that wider sort of aspect of how that is part of the broader maybe city or the broader area in which that place is part of. In any local area or any community, there's a whole range of community-based organisations, there's a whole range of government-based organisations, there's a whole range of statutory organisations, and creating the ecosystem where they can work together in a collaborative and effective manner needs to have a conscious effort around it. It doesn't just happen if you just want it to. That anchor role, I think, can be played by not just one but a range of organisations. So, you know, there's opportunities, I think, for a range of organisations to be part of that anchor type ecosystem that exists. So definitely I think, you know, development trusts, you know, it can play an important role there. Obviously that whole physical regeneration and the role of regeneration in addressing disadvantage and deprivation is really important. So again, working with organisations to bring that into that broader, well, how do we actually manage this in our community? What are the assets that are there? How can they be effectively managed by community or community organisations? How can that play a role in the broader regeneration of the area is really important. So I think there's also a really important role there in terms of supporting and developing that side of work in the community as well. Outcomes essentially, ultimately, at the end of the day, have to be better for people on the ground, so that we have more people in work, more people, you know, who are economically active, less people who are suffering from deprivation and disadvantage, and that our communities are renewed, and that there is, you know, more opportunity for people who live within them. So, I mean, that would be what success ultimately has to mean, that people's lives, particularly those suffering deprivation and disadvantage, are better.
I'm Georgina Grave. I'm the Chief Executive of the Workspace Group. Workspace is a social enterprise which is based in Draperstown in Mid Ulster. We were set up in 1985 to sort of overcome local deprivation and unemployment in the area. So we're really set up to support the area, to regenerate the area, and to support the local community groups, schools, businesses that operate within the area. In terms of measuring success, it's about improving the local area and improving the community. If we look back to where Draperstown was as a community in 1985 to what it is today, it's completely different. It was in serious deprivation. There was a lot of dereliction, a lot of unemployment. It's a completely different environment today in Draperstown. There was no facilities. There's now loads of facilities in the area. There's sports centres, there's multiple sports clubs, there's cafes and health facilities that were never here previously, and that's really down to initially kick-starting that economy when we went back and built those units in 1985. We don't take credit for that, but that's the community coming together and that whole ownership of trying to improve the local community. In terms of DTNI, I think they've been the champions of community wealth building. They have been the ones that have sort of put community wealth building out there and explained what that is and raised awareness of it. Also, in terms of community asset transfer, I think DTNI have been the leaders in pushing that forward. And certainly for ourselves, we see where that's come from. The team at DTNI are very supportive. They're very informative. They've been invaluable in terms of pushing policy and in terms of local governments and changing the mindset towards things like community asset transfer and community wealth building.
Mourne Mountain Rescue Team is the oldest team in Ireland, established in 1962, and we are currently based in the DTNI station in Newcastle, County Down. Mourne Mountain Rescue Team is one of the blue light emergency services, but crucially it's completely voluntary, so there's nobody paid to do anything in the mountain rescue. And they task the Mourne Mountain Rescue Team, professional, well-trained team of volunteers, to make sure that the best quality care is given to people on the mountains. Mourne Mountain Rescue Team have been effectively squatters in the DTNI station for over 30 years, and we started our campaign 14 years ago to look for a new base, and we struggled to find any site in the Newcastle area which is our ideal location for access to the busiest mountain, the highest mountain in Northern Ireland, Slieve Donard, and it was only by good luck and great coincidence that Lidl came along around that same time and offered us a site within the confines of their car park on the site of the old Newcastle St Mary's Primary School. So we're almost ready to go with constructing our first ever purpose-made Mourne Mountain Rescue Team base. The new facility will give us all those, all that we need in terms of education for the public, communication rooms, training rooms, indoor training rooms for the team, and storage for the vehicles, wash bay facilities outside, and easy access to Sleeve Donard, which is literally around the corner. All good community projects require community support, so we needed to consult at an early stage with the wider public, and we very quickly, with DTNI's help, realised that Speak NMD, which is a great platform now, DTNI Connect, was the best way to reach out to the public, and we literally got thousands of messages back from the public around a questionnaire that we developed with DTNI, and that consultation led us to an application, several applications, before we were successful with the Community Ownership Fund from the UK government, and that meant that we actually closed the funding gap, and we got £540,000 from that exercise, added to all of the contributions, over 700,000 of local public donations, and we now have the money to build a new base. We hope that we will be open and ready for serving the public in Newcastle and Northern Ireland from May 2026.
South Tyrone Empowerment Programme, now known as STEP, was originally formed in 1996. So we predated the formation of DTNI by a number of years. So we've been sort of with DTNI from the very start, and it seemed to us a natural place for us to be, because DTNI occupy a very unique space, and that was their intention from the start, to provide a particular network and shared space for organisations who were not simply community organisations dependent on doing projects one after another or delivering services one after another, but people who were intentionally building community wealth and community wealth infrastructures. Well, I think DTNI has a good vision for going forward. We are stuck. Northern Ireland is stuck. Lough Neagh is a good and sad image of what's happening everywhere. Stagnation, blaming, and lack of resources to make things better. And you can either keep that up, but crying cures no evil, as the bard William Marshall, the Ulster dialect bard, said, crying cures no evil. Or you can lead to find solutions. You can look for solutions and lead the conversations, which will draw people into working together. And I think DTNI can lead that space around community ownership, community wealth building, community collaboration, around many of the small and larger problems, and to lead the advocacy for legislation to enable that to happen. So I think that's the work going forward. But I think DTNI has challenges but great opportunities to further develop that space, and I'm confident that they will.
As a younger person, I suppose, in social development and community development, I think the amount of experience and potential here is something that people in my generation don't actually know about yet. People around their 20s are out there trying to get experience now, and they're also often very passionate about social issues, but they maybe don't know how to apply that in their career and their work. In the age we live in, where, you know, with all the awful things happening around the world, it's hard to know where to start. and where to do something good. And often I've learned in this job there is something always happening around the corner that you can get involved in. There's a lot of motivation and skills and experience that will be very useful in this sector that's out there but just needs to be found and harnessed. For more young people to get into the sector, I think there needs to be a overall shift in the way we think about entry level. We need to open up training and open up especially paid positions to get people in and give them the skills, but also more importantly sometimes to build relationships, because a lot of this sector, as I found it, is so heavily built on relationships and forming connections, and that's one of the key things you might not have if you come in as a junior person.
Well, over the past 15 years, I mean, it's been a challenge, it's been a journey. It's had its good spots and it's had its bad turns. I think for us in the north of Ireland, here in Northern Ireland, it's been an opportunity to work with our colleagues in Scotland in particular, but also our colleagues in England and in Wales, and realising that we're part of a broader family of community development organisations who are interested in addressing the issues around social and economic and environmental justice. Over the past 15 years, and the partner work really has been the work with members, and the founding members in particular have been instrumental in setting a pathway for DTNI. And really without sort of the network of members and what it is that they do, then DTNI wouldn't really be an organisation at all. Well, the biggest challenge in the past 15 years has undoubtedly been the policy framework for supporting public assets being made available to community development trusts in the north of Ireland. The intent of the policy framework, the aspiration is laudable. It's fit for purpose. Its application, unfortunately, is slightly more challenging. But nonetheless, I think that's the key sort of learning that we have to take from the past 15 years, is that we have to resolve that. We have to get into a space where we maximise the opportunities from taking public assets, as has been done in England and Scotland in particular. So there is a ways to do that. I think we just need to focus our energies on that as we go forward. I would like to think that for the next 15 years that we bring more young people into work in our sector. And I would like to think that we can work to strengthen the sector, strengthen our organisations and make them interesting and enticing places for younger people with new ideas and new vision for society can come. And I think also when we think about democracy and what that means in a place like Northern Ireland, I do see, or I envisage, at least community anchor organisations in our towns and cities and villages being to the fore and representing the interests of citizens. And I think we do need a bigger conversation around local democracy. We do need to think about what that means for people in place. And I do think that the family of community development trusts certainly has a role to play in that conversation and in the outworkings of that conversation. I think success is generally measured in the number of assets that people have, and that's one measure of success. But I think the better measure of success is how engaged organisations are with the people who make up the places in which they work out of. It's the value added from the work of development trusts for people essentially is the ultimate measure of success.